Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are on a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Well, he won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck. He's a real athlete, so give him your respect. He's got intensity, integrity, intelligence too. Oh, it's true, it's damn true. So if he ever finds you and you're chanting you suck, then he'll douse you in dairy with his big milk truck. And with one angle slam, he'll lay you out on the floor. So listen up, it's time to go. It's the Kurt Angle Show.
Hey, this is Kurt Angle, and welcome to the Kurt Angle Show. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Unforgiven 2001 pay-per-view, the night I defeated Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWE Championship. But first, let me introduce to you my co-host, Conrad Thompson. How you doing today, Conrad?
Man, I'm excited to be here. This show feels like it was forever ago, but it really wasn't. It was just 20 years ago. Yeah. But boy, the world sure has changed. Just a little before this pay-per-view, and of course, what we know is coming right after this pay-per-view. It's going to be a little rowdy in the World Wrestling Federation, but we're on the heels of a pretty major event. And no, I'm not talking about the prior month's pay-per-view, SummerSlam. I'm talking about 9/11. And as you and I are recording this show, not too long ago, we just passed the 20-year anniversary of 9/11. And that whole SmackDown that happened in Houston right after 9/11, you were in the main event. And afterwards, grabbed the mic after you picked up a win over Rhino and got the whole crowd chanting USA. What a weird time it was, but how fitting it was that our American hero went on last.
It was pretty awesome. It was a great moment for me because I was representing our country for the first sporting event that opened up since what happened at 9/11, the tragedy. So we were the first ones to do it. And what we were doing was we were sending a message to the bad people that we're not going to lay down. We're not going to sit back and just give up. We're going to move on with our lives. And, Vince McMahon had faith in me to carry the show in the main event because I was an Olympic gold medalist and I represented the USA.
And just 12 days after that tragedy, we had the Unforgiven pay-per-view, and we're going to talk about it in long form, but let's sort of piece it together. But I just want to give everybody a heads up as we start this episode that the whole 9/11 attacks are at the forefront of everyone's mind as this pay-per-view is going down. But this is a pretty special show too for you personally, because Unforgiven is your hometown, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and you're in the main event against the biggest star there ever was for the world title, and you're getting the win. This has got to be one of the biggest moments of your entire career, right?
Oh, without a doubt. It was the biggest moment of my career. I did beat The Rock for the WWE Championship the year prior, but this one was even more special because of 9/11 and because of what I was representing at the pay-per-view. I wasn't supposed to win that match. That got changed at the last second. I came up with the idea that 9/11 occurred and, the country's down and everybody's, nervous and uptight. And I thought, let's give this country a boost in the arm, a booster shot, and have the Olympic hero, American hero, win the pay-per-view. So I went to Vince and I told him that. And he said, well, you're going to have to talk to Steve Austin. So I had to call Steve and see if he would agree to it. He agreed 100%. So I wasn't supposed to beat Austin for the world title. That happened because of 9/11.
So let's get into it. We covered Milkomania in depth in the archives. Be sure to check that out. Coming off Raw, there's a live SmackDown in Denver at the Pepsi Center. There, you're going to beat Chris Kanyon in a non-title match in 3 minutes and 43 seconds. Of course, Kanyon is going to be a subject of Dark Side of the Ring coming up. And a lot of people, I think, are going to learn a lot about Mr. Kanyon, both in the ring and behind the scenes, who he was. But he was a very, ahead of his time wrestler, very innovative for the time. But you don't really get to see a ton of that in 3 minutes and 43 seconds. Do you have any fond memories of wrestling, Mr. Kanyon?
He was great in the ring. He had every talent that you needed to be in pro wrestling. He had a lot of success in WCW. I just don't think we utilized them properly to his fullest potential in WWE. I'm not sure what happened there, how we dropped the ball, but he was really talented. You're absolutely right.
You wind up working with Rhino a lot at the house shows and even main eventing a lot with him. Rhino, of course, is fresh off of an ECW world title run. And obviously he's one of your traveling companion, with Edge and Christian. You guys would really pal around together. Was Rhino ready to be a top guy in your mind at that time?
I think Rhino, he probably could have gone a little bit further. I loved his character. I loved his in-ring style. I mean, he looked the part. He looked like a rhino. He was one. He was a fierce animal that charged and gored you. And but I think that his mic skills were a little unpolished and not as up to par as what Vince would like. So I think that might have held him back a little bit.
You're scheduled on Raw from Grand Rapids on August 27th, the main event with Chris Jericho against Steve Austin and Rob Van Dam. But wouldn't you know it, Austin is suffering from a broken arm. So Austin chooses Raven to replace him. Was Austin just pretty beat down physically at this point? He'd been running hard for a long time.
No, I think at this point that was more of a heat getting angle. They wanted him to pretend fake an injury to dodge me in that match. So Austin was trying to find a formidable opponent for me during the night, which eventually I think I beat up Raven and took him out for the night, and Austin had to get somebody else. But it was a story. It was storyline driven.
I just wondered, a lot of times art imitates life, and when a guy has, because we would see the sort of the evolution of Austin, right? He had no knee braces, and then one knee brace, and then a second knee brace, and then the whole Owen Hart head trauma injury, and then the whole neck stuff. And before you know it, I mean, he's just really racking it up, and you could really identify with that. I mean, you were worse for wear at different parts during your career and still feeling those bumps and bruises today. Did you ever have a conversation with Austin about the real life injuries that he was trying to work through in this era?
Well, I knew he was struggling with his knees, and his neck, he never really sold it. Even after the surgery, he came back. He was 100% and he was going hard. But what happened with him, and the reason why he retired, is his back started to go too. And he was really playing with fire, because when he get up on the second rope to pose, his legs would twitch really hard. And
wow.
It was noticeable on camera. So Vince McMahon was like telling Kevin Dunn, the producer, don't show shots of Austin's lower body, just as of his upper body, because his back was starting to go too. And he was going to have surgery again. And he went to the doctor, and that's what the doctor said. And the doctor actually said, I can fix you. And Austin was like, I think Austin just got a little worried that this injury was going to get worse and worse, and even if he had surgery, it was going to be bad. So he actually walked out of the doctor's office and didn't even answer him. He just left because he didn't believe he needed surgery. I think he just thought that he was done.
I feel strongly that saving money is important. If it's not something we worry about now, boy, we are really going to worry about it later. And I want to help you get out of debt faster and do it with cheaper monthly payments. I'm talking to you if you're in a 30-year loan.
Now is the time to take years off of your loan. We're routinely helping our listeners cut 5, 10, even 15 years off their loan, and you can do this without perfect credit with no money out of pocket. You've just got to start at savewithconrad.com.
So Raven is the guy who's chosen to replace Austin in storyline at this point. And as you mentioned, you're going to destroy him backstage to take him out of the main event. Now Austin is tasked with finding another replacement. Before we talk about that replacement, you spent some time with Raven over the years. What do you think of Raven as a performer?
Oh, I loved him. I thought his character was intriguing. I love the I don't care attitude, the dark look and everything like that. The crazy thing is he was the opposite. His personality, he was bright, always positive, had a smile on his face during the day, but at night, was that serious Raven, that mystery, character. And it was just the complete opposite of what he was.
Let's talk about who does get the replacement spot. This is from the Observer recap of that Raw. Stasiak set up this sour milk and chunks and all sorts of gross stuff in a bucket on the door as a trick for Angle. Instead, Deborah came in and got doused and freaked out. Stasiak and Keebler, when they saw it was Deborah, ran out of the building. Austin did a promo as Deborah and he thought it was a trick played by Angle. Austin talked about Angle messing with his prized possession. Deborah thought it was her, but Austin cleared up that he meant the WWF World Title, which is a silly but fun skit. But this is just right up your alley in this era, is it not?
Yes, I love this kind of comedy. And Austin was really good at it. The crazy thing about Austin, he was over as a baby. He was over as a heel. Anything he did, anything he touched turned into gold. He was able to make the most out of anything, especially the pre-tapes. And, he improvised a lot of it. And it was just crazy how good he was.
Meltzer would recap. The main event winds up being Angle and Jericho versus Taz and RVD. The match had heat and was good. Rob Van Dam hit a splash on Angle and Taz went for the pin for a near fall, which got a big pop. Rob Van Dam then misses a moonsault off the barricades outside and Jericho put him in the walls on the floor. Austin finally got out of the sling and posted Jericho. Angle reverses the Taz mission into the Angle slam for the pin. Austin then nails Angle after the match with the title belt and took his 2 medals as the show goes off the air. So a hot finish where you're getting the win, but Austin's quote unquote getting his heat back right away. You had to be loving this. You probably never had a dance opponent like Austin before this, where everything he did was just quote unquote over, right?
Oh yes. Like I said before, whatever he did turned into gold. He was so creative and innovative with everything he did. Even, the redneck character was actually super over. He, the beer drinker, and whether he was a baby or a heel, he was able to get himself over to a degree that was above everybody else.
People loved it. That's for sure. Let's talk about something here that I want to mention in the Observer that I thought really made a lot of sense. Meltzer would write, they're trying to make Angle into Austin by repeating a lot of the things they did in 97 and 98 with Austin. And creatively, that's kind of hard to argue. He had the beer truck, you had the milk truck, some of those sort of things. Did you see the similarities between Austin's push and yourself? Because I know you were at least watching in 98.
Yes. And the old quote, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Sure.
Words, if it works, do it over again. And the thing is, Austin was still related to it.
Yes.
It's the stuff he did to others. And this was the time where he's getting it back to him. And I think that the story of coming full circle, like it did with Stone Cold, is actually a pretty cool storyline because he was still part of it. He was just getting it done to him instead of doing it to them.
The next night in Detroit for the SmackDown taping, you cut a promo that you're looking for your medals and you want a title shot. But instead of Steve Austin coming out, it's Booker T and Shane McMahon come out. And now it's Booker versus yourself in the main event. Of course, you beat up Booker and Shane, and then Austin appears on the screen and says, you'll have to meet him in the parking lot to get him back. So of course you go searching for Austin. And you can imagine what's going to happen here. He's nowhere to be found, but Tommy Dreamer's there. You kick his ass and keep it moving. Before we go any further, any good Tommy Dreamer stories you can share with us?
No, but with Tommy, we would always rib him about losing every match that he ever wrestled in. It was crazy because this is how special he was. The fans never gave up on him.
Right.
Lost almost every match of his career, at least in WWE. And the fans never gave up. They believed in him. And when you lose that many times, the fans lose faith in you and they just give up on you. And with him, he had the fans in the palm of his hands. It was an incredible relationship. And I never seen anything like that before.
Very well done. Of course, you're going to keep moving. And then Austin attempts to run you over just like he had done to him at Survivor Series 99. Take me through this. I mean, here you are, an Olympic gold medalist, and they're saying, okay, Kurt, here's what we got in mind. We're going to have Steve Austin hit you with a fucking car today.
Well, I was hoping there was a stunt double, but no, we had to do it on our own. All you had to do is get out of the way. That's the number one thing you had to worry about was and Austin, he's going to come really close. He's one of those guys that likes to rib you. He actually used to do it. Whenever we would leave the arena, when I first started, Austin would see me and he'd start running me down with a car and I'd have to get out of the way. And he would drive right by me and he'd give me the finger. It was like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. He's trying to run me over in real life. It was hilarious, but we ended up doing it again, but on TV.
So you avoid it. Of course, thankfully you're not ran over. Austin drives away. You do get your match with Booker T in the main event. You get the win, but it's not before Austin throws your medals in the river. And it's kind of funny because again, this is something he did with The Rock before in the Intercontinental title, but now it's with your gold medals. And of course, before anyone asked, no, they weren't his actual gold medals. The next night at Raw, you're in Toronto at the Air Canada Center. Is Toronto your favorite town to wrestle in Canada, or does another stick out?
Toronto and Montreal, they have great, passionate fans. A lot of fun to wrestle up there. Canadian fans are some of the most passionate fans in the world, especially in Montreal and Toronto.
So, something less than awesome happens here. You kidnap Steve Austin in a truck. You're driving him to the river. You're threatening to throw him off a bridge. And there's an issue with USA, even though this is all pre-taped. Here's what the Observer said. Finally, the signal came back on with Deborah in mid-speech doing some of the worst acting, even by Raw standards, crying, begging Angle not to throw Austin over the bridge since he's her husband. Should be noted that there was a major rainstorm in Toronto live, but because this was pre-taped, no such problem. But it confused the hell out of the people leaving the ACC, not figuring out why it was pouring and it wasn't where Austin and Angle were. Somehow in all of this physical comedy, Austin either jammed or broke his left thumb, but was still able to work the next night. Angle made Austin beg and cry, threatening to kill him, but before killing him, changed his mind and decided he wanted a title shot at Unforgiven in Pittsburgh, which of course the crowd booed heavily. As if by magic, a wading pool suddenly appeared on a deserted bridge. Angle shoved Austin into the pool where he floundered about while Angle drove off and left him. This is some silly shit, but I imagine you had fun with it.
I did have fun with it, but it's kind of crazy that there was an actual pool on the bridge. Just happened to be there.
Silly,
right?
Fun.
It was a lot of fun. I especially being around Steve and the experience he had and what he brought to the table. A lot of the stuff we did was his idea. So it was a lot of fun working with Steve because he was really creative.
So I'm curious, the part where you're threatening to kill him. I mean, this is something that is almost like no man's land in wrestling. Like you can talk about, I'm going to kick your butt and I'm going to leave you laying and I'm going to put you in the hospital. But rarely do you hear someone say, I'm going to kill you. Were you comfortable with this creative, or did you think, it's just acting? Who cares?
Well, A little bit of both. I
Yeah.
mean, it is kind of offensive to say I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
It's even in pro wrestling, but it's one of those things where I was going to throw him off a bridge, handcuffed. Obviously, I was going to kill him if I threw him off. So why not just say it?
The next night, you're back in Toronto for a live SmackDown. The music plays during the main event of Austin versus Rob Van Dam. Of course, you get a gigantic pop. RVD takes advantage of Austin being distracted. He's schoolboy Stone Cold, and he gets the win. And I think some people, if you're trying to poke holes in the booking, would say, well, it hurts Austin to lose here. But to me, it shows that no, he's really more worried about you than he is Rob Van Dam. Do you think this distraction finish and the schoolboy is overused in wrestling at this point?
Oh, definitely. I think we got a little bit lazy. It's kind of acceptable with the wrestlers and with the fans. They see that, when they're wrestling and somebody comes out and music plays and someone gets a quick finish, that happens quite a bit. So I think the fans know when that occurs that it's going to happen. Sometimes guys do kick out of it, continue on, but for the most part, that's when the match is over.
Do you think it confused the audience? I mean, after you see Rob Van Dam pin the champ, do you think perhaps some people thought, well, wait a minute, this must mean they're building towards Rob Van Dam in Austin? Or did that not confuse the issue, at least to you?
It didn't to me, because it was a quick finish. He snuck it. It wasn't like he did it fairly. Austin got distracted. So that's one excuse that you can, that Austin can claim. But, for the most part, it was, it happens. So, but I'm okay with them pushing RVD at the same time. Why not push two wrestlers and not just one? And I think they were trying to push RVD at that particular time. I believe a couple months afterward, we had a triple threat match with Austin, myself, and RVD. So they were building RVD up at this particular moment.
Well, the next time you're in Raw, which is on the 10th, so the day before 9/11, you're going to be taking on Rob Van Dam. It's going to be a hardcore match, and it is pretty hardcore. I mean, they're doing all the crazy stuff, including coming off the ramp. But ultimately, you wind up getting stretchered out in a neck brace, and it's almost as if we're positioning like, hey, the pay-per-view main event could be in jeopardy. What do you remember about that night?
Yeah, I got thrown off the stage, and they wanted me to act like I hurt my neck and that I wasn't going to be able to wrestle to show that the pay-per-view was in jeopardy. It's one of those things that it could work and it couldn't work. I mean, it's a really tough, it's a tough storyline to portray. I mean, being injured and, the pay-per-view coming up, it's probably not the smartest move to do that, but I think that they wanted me to look like I was working from underneath.
Tell us about taking the big bump off of the ramp. We know later when you're in TNA, you're going to become a bit of a daredevil and you're just going to do it yourself. But here, when Austin is throwing you off the ramp, any concern or hesitation about how that's done? Do y'all do a walkthrough earlier in the day? I mean, I know there's a crash pad or something, but still, it's something you've never done before. Do you do it for the first time in front of an audience?
You can. I mean, it's not that crazy of a bump. It's probably about 8 or 10 feet. And, you have a crash pad down there. You land on your feet and drop and roll. So it's not that bad. I mean, you could blow your knee out possibly, but for the most part, it's relatively safe.
I've always just been fascinated by pro wrestling because, in traditional, we'll call it Hollywood movies, man, they just do take after take after take. And here in pro wrestling, most of the time, hey, it's just what happens. And a lot of times performers are asked to do something that they've never done in quote unquote practice. They've never had a rehearsal, and we're just going to do the stunt and we'll film it and hopefully it turns out okay. And I'll be damned if most of the time it doesn't turn out just fine.
I know sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but you play your cards and you get what you're dealt with.
So as a reminder, on this day, you win the hardcore title, but on this day you immediately lose it because after that big bump off the ramp, RVD winds up with an arm draped over you and ta-da, he's got it back. But all that's sort of funny, haha, because the next morning, less than 12 hours after that, the world changes. Carry us through 9/11 very briefly, how you found out what was going on. Were you in bed? Did someone give you a call? What did that look like when you first learned of the tragedy of the morning of Tuesday, September 11th?
Well, I was in a hotel room in Houston, Texas, waking up, getting ready for SmackDown. I turned on the TV and I saw airplanes fly right into the Twin Towers. They kept showing it over and over again. And it was shocking. I mean, the whole country shut down. Everybody was scared. Everybody was nervous. I got a call by Johnny Laurinaitis saying that SmackDown was canceled, but stay put because we might end up doing something in a day or two. And he said he's not sure right now, but they might possibly do something later on in the week. So, I just sat there in a hotel room. You couldn't do anything. A lot of people were scared to go anywhere. You felt like if you were around a big crowd, that would leave you vulnerable. So you want to kind of stay put and stay in a private room and kind of wait it out and make sure that the security in the United States was a lot tighter.
So you're a husband at the time, and I believe a father at the time. What's that like? I mean, here you are across the country from where you live. This big tragedy's happened. Are you just wearing out the phone back home, wanting to check on everybody, make sure they're okay? Because that feels like a really stressful place for a husband and a father to be separated during that time.
Yeah, it was stressful. I called back, made sure everybody was okay. And, they were keeping in touch with me all day and relaying messages to me, because what happened was an airplane about an hour and a half away from Pittsburgh, one of those airplanes crashed into the hills, and it was actually a scary situation. My family thought there could be other airplanes in the air close by, so it was actually a crazy situation.
It's just weird to think, back then everything was different. It's not like you had the internet in your pocket. Everybody has that now with their cell phones, but some folks didn't have cell phones. And if they did, a lot of folks didn't have text messaging capacity, or there weren't emails on the phone. And, with all the flights being canceled, and I mean, it was a scary time. And I can't imagine being separated from your real family, but now you have your wrestling family, but nobody really has answers. It's not like if you can get a hold of someone, they say, oh, well, here's the manual and we're supposed to do X, Y, Z, right?
You just had to sit and wait. It was, and time went by very slowly. It was a very difficult time waiting it out and making sure that it wasn't going to happen again, and seeing what the country was going to do, how we were going to respond to it. Were they going to shut everything down and keep it closed for the next several weeks, or were they going to open up again? And, our whole life changed from that day forward. I mean, airports became a lot more secure. You obviously couldn't get through security with certain things that you used to be able to. Now, everything was off limits. It was crazy.
I want to mention too, the show we sort of briefly touched on at the top, the tribute show, if you will, right after 9/11. You're main eventing Rhino there, which really doesn't line up with what you were doing on camera. I mean, when we saw you most recently, you were stretchered out in a neck brace, but we forget all that because America. I mean, we're trying to do a tribute show, and I think that was the right call. In Nashville on the 17th, you have the first Raw since the attack. You're in a promo battle with Rob Van Dam. That leads to a main event of you and Jericho against Austin and Rob Van Dam. You get the win over Austin. And then we do a taping in Memphis the next night for SmackDown. Austin and Taz attack you and pile drive you on the concrete. You're stretchered out again, this time claiming you can't feel your arms. That feels as if that was the original plan if 9/11 wouldn't have happened. Would that be a fair guess?
Yes. I mean, I think they had to reboot it, with me wrestling Rhino and nothing was wrong with my neck the following week after Austin threw me off the stage. It was kind of weird that I was okay the following week wrestling Rhino. And then the week after, we had to reboot the program, the storyline, and show that I injured my neck again. So it was kind of like a reboot.
I want to mention at the end of the night, you do make your return after Austin defeats Tajiri. You rip off your neck brace to show you're okay. Some people would think, boy, we're hot-shotting this when earlier in the same show, he was saying, I might be paralyzed. I can't feel my arms, blah, blah, blah. I know we can just lay on the convenient excuse of, well, he has a stinger, but in old school traditional wrestling, we would have stretched it out. But I don't think this is necessarily WWE's fault here, because you got to think that 9/11 SmackDown, when you lose that, you sort of have to just push everything along, but we still want to wind up here at Unforgiven, which is where we are. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 13,855 fans, a tremendous gate, $648,115, which is a near sellout. And I think you even had your family ringside for the show. This is a big moment in your career, is it not?
Oh yeah, it was the biggest moment in my pro wrestling career. I was in my hometown, Pittsburgh, wrestling the biggest star of all time with my family there. This was a huge, special moment for me.
Well, let's go back and relive it. Let's fire up the Peacock Network. Let's go to Unforgiven Season 4, Episode 1. I know that's silly, boys and girls. It should just be called Unforgiven 2001, but bear with us. We want you to pull up Season 4, Episode 1 of Unforgiven. Go to 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 24 seconds. That time code again is 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 24 seconds. We want you at home to go ahead and mute. Kurt's going to mute. I'm going to let the audio play. You'll hear it through our side, and then we'll take it down once we get through the recap video and just sort of tell you what Kurt was thinking as he watches this really important match. Kurt, I'm ready on my end. Are you ready on your end?
I'm trying to.
Well, we're going to do a little countdown. We'll do.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go. We're ready. I'm going to do 3, 2, 1. And when I say play, we'll press play. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, play.
The main event here tonight for the WWF Championship. This has been a war. We saw what these two men did at SummerSlam to each other, but it didn't stop there.
Austin, at SummerSlam, I was nice enough to kick out of 3 Stone Cold Stunners. My God, Angle kicked out, and Austin cannot believe it. Only to see yourself get disqualified.
The 3 referees Austin has taken out.
Because you realized you couldn't beat your Olympic hero.
Kurt Angle just got screwed by God out of the WWF title.
Then the following night, you had your little Austin appreciation night. And again, I was nice enough to drive all the way in.
Kurt Angle's driving a milk truck
And supply you with some good, wholesome milk.
Milkomania is running wild, and Austin and the Alliance getting humiliated by Kurt Angle. Stone Cold will not forget this night.
Kurt Angle has been bitten by the rattlesnake.
Oh, come on. Austin is putting Kurt Angle's gold medals around his neck. Those medals symbolize everything that Kurt Angle is about.
You said I never have none of these. Stone Cold Steve Austin's got 2 of them. They belong to you. I said they belong to you, Kurt. What will you do, Kurt, to get these gold medals back? Are you too proud to beg for them, Kurt? Get on your hands and knees and cry for me, Kurt. Go and cry. Cry for me, Kurt. This is what means everything to me. These mean nothing to me. And if you won't beg for me, if you won't cry for me, they don't mean nothing to you. I'm the king of the world!
Kurt Angle with a weapon just hit Austin in the back of the head, and the rattlesnake is down.
Where is Kurt Angle going with Stone Cold?
I'm gonna do the same thing to you that you did to my gold medals.
That's right.
Cry for me, Austin. What? You're pathetic. You're a joke. Come on, Austin, cry. Come on, cry, Austin. There's one thing I want more than anything. I want a return match for the WWF title.
You got it.
When?
Unforgiven.
What?
I've been humiliated and embarrassed for the last time by Kurt Angle. I gotta whip somebody's ass tonight because I cannot wait for Unforgiven.
Wait, oh my God! Austin just threw Kurt Angle right off the stage.
Cold Steve Austin has made a powerful statement. You will not embarrass Stone Cold Steve Austin. You're a desperate man, Austin, because when you look at me, you know that I am the one man that in your mind can beat you.
Days could be numbered for the WWF champion Stone Cold.
Kurt, Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to make an example out of you. What?
Stone Cold Steve Austin's out of control. That is a sick human being. No, my God, no, no. Austin makes me sick.
This belt is mine. Go back. Austin and Unforgiven, I will walk out of my hometown the World Wrestling Federation champion. Oh, it's true. It's still true.
And you just gotta imagine how physically intense this confrontation for the richest prize in our business will be.
The match happened 20 years ago, and I'm ready to see it right now. What a great package.
It was a great package. Those packages back then were incredible.
Unbelievable. I think that's David Sahadi's work. Do I have that right?
Yes, Dave Sahadi was the guy back then. He was awesome.
Wait, we just got a shot of some folks at ringside. Was that your mom?
That was my mom. That's Jackie Angle.
Wow. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. There's Eric.
What did wow, look at Eric. What did your mom think of you becoming a WWE superstar? You've told us before that, you know, you came from a quote unquote blue collar family and you've been blessed beyond any expectation financially here, but now you see this adulation from all the fans. I mean, you're one of the top guys in the business. You and Austin are just definitely 1 and 2, and your mom is here seeing it. What's she think of all this?
She was so proud. She was the only one in the family that wasn't against it.
Really?
My brothers, yeah, because you know they were all amateur wrestlers, and amateur wrestling was the real deal, and pro wrestling was fake. And they weren't very excited about me joining. But my mother was like, "This is a great opportunity for you." So, you know, I took her advice and went with it. And my brothers learned to like it. They did. They're big fans now. So they just had to understand it, what the business was all about. And I did too. It took me a while though.
Man, what a hot start. You guys are already battling on the ramp.
Steve's calling all this to me, believe it or not. This is all him telling me what to do every step of the way. He's talking to me right now.
So this was not improv. I mean, this was not laid out ahead of time. This is all improv here.
This is improv. Yeah. Austin was the best at this. I was only in the business a year and a half at this point. I didn't have enough experience to be calling it in the ring. So, you know, it takes several years to get that art down.
What do you think of that unforgiving steel ramp that you guys used to have on the way to the ring? You took some bumps on there over the years. That couldn't have been fun.
Oh, it was a pain, a real pain, like literally the worst pain I've ever had. You bump on that, it's solid. It's solid steel. No give.
Oh, I like that. The tease of I'm gonna do the kick and set up the stunner. It almost looked like a botch, but you made it work where it was not. It was psychology.
Yeah, it was Austin's idea. He was great at this stuff.
And then you catching him with a Thez press. Is that the first time you've done a Thez press right there?
Yeah, Steve wanted me to give it back to him because he did it to me all the time. So I said, all right, I'll do it. He called that in the ring.
Hypothetically, did anybody ever try to do a Thez press in amateur wrestling?
No, nobody ever tried. If they did, they'd probably get thrown on their head.
It's just so great. You know, wrestling fans are like, oh, Thez was such a great amateur. And it's like the move named after him you would never do in amateur wrestling. Leave my feet on purpose? I don't think so. Man, this is so fun to go back and watch. Do you ever watch old footage of old matches like this? And like that
every once in a while, and it brings back a great feeling because this is when the business was really fun and exciting for me. I was new to it and everything was new every week. I just had so much fun. You know, I told you in other episodes, I was like a little kid in the candy store. I couldn't wait to see what was next. You know, I'd go in that store and I'd pick my candy and I'd keep on picking it and I'd have more options than I ever imagined. And it was just exactly like that. I mean, you know, the writers were on par with me. They knew my character. They knew how I spoke. we just all had great chemistry together, even the wrestlers.
You know, it's got to be rewarding and maybe even surreal to be you and watch a match like this, where it's like, you know, you've accomplished so much, but you being you're this humble guy who just, I'm just trying to make a living and take care of my family. But you look back at this stuff and it's got to be like, and I know it was just a blur, right? Because you do so much so fast. Like, this is a big show, but guess what? You're on another show tomorrow night. The very next night, you're in another town doing another big show, and it all probably just blurs together. But then you go back and watch stuff like this, and it's got to be like, man, shit, we did some pretty big stuff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is all blurred together. But when you go back and watch these things, you realize how special they were, especially at that particular moment.
I couldn't help but notice when we talked about your mom and her support, that hit you in the feels a little bit. That got you a little emotional talking about mom and her support. That's cool of you to share that with us today.
Well, she's the only one in my family who has passed on that I really had a hard time with dealing with her death. You know, I didn't have that difficult of a time dealing with my dad's death or my sister's death, even though it was my sister. Not as much as my mom, because my connection with my mother was incredible. We just had the tightest connection that anybody could ever have. And I never forgot that.
Well, I'm sure she's super proud of you now, even today, looking down, watching us record a silly podcast. And
You're absolutely right, Conrad.
So you said your brother wouldn't. Oh, nice. You said your brother wasn't all that into wrestling and wasn't all that supportive, but here he was front row ringside. Is this really the first time he got to see it up close?
Yes. All my brothers, I think there were 4 of them there, and, you know, they all came out to see it. By this point, they were fans. So when I started training, you know, I trained for about 6 to 8 months before I got on TV. My first year, my rookie year was 2000. They started becoming fans at that particular time because they accepted me. They accepted that I did it and I was going to continue to do it. So they might as well go along for the ride.
We got referee Earl Hebner in there. Where was Hebner amongst your favorite WWF referees?
Actually, he's my second favorite. Believe it or not, his son, Brian, was my favorite. Brian had a gift. He was actually the third worker in the ring. This kid, his knowledge of wrestling and psychology, he would come up with ideas for us. He wanted to know every spot of every particular match that he refereed. He wanted to know everything so that he could relay it to us if we forgot. So he was invested in the whole match. He didn't just come up and say, "Hey, what's the finish?" And that's usually what the refs do.
Right.
You know, but Brian wanted to know the whole thing.
So in a match like this, where it's the main event, it's on last, your only real, you threw Austin off the stage. Your only real parameter here, I assume, would be, guys, we only have so much satellite time, right? As far as a time constraint. Cause I mean, you're on last. You don't have to worry about anybody else's matches.
No. And I don't know when the satellite time goes out. I don't know if we had a limit or if Vince gave us ample time to have this match. So I'd imagine that the show might've been light because we went pretty long here.
Yeah, you did. And the actual runtime on the show, at least on Peacock now, is 2 hours, 37 minutes and 50 seconds. So it feels like there would have been a little more time, which brings me to the next point of, was this match, do you think, originally scheduled to go longer? It already went, oh, look at you flipping him off. Oh, wow. And the fans are into it, man. They were ready to see that hardened edge of Kurt Angle. No more Mr. Nice Guy here, huh?
Yeah. You know, what's crazy is when I started wrestling, Austin's the reason why I started. I was intrigued by his character and what he did. And I always wanted to be him, even though I never could be Stone Cold Steve Austin. But that was the kind of character I wanted to be. And I ended up being the complete opposite. So when I got to be a babyface wrestling Austin, I became Austin-esque.
Did you even drink beer here? There's no way you drank beer here.
I had a couple beers with Austin after the shows where we would celebrate when we were both baby faces. So every once in a while I had a couple beers with Austin. I actually refused it. And Shane pulled me aside one night and said, hey, don't refuse a beer with Stone Cold. He's going to get offended. So I had to go back in and say, Steven, I'll take that beer. And I would drink a beer with him after the show. And so Shane smartened me up and said, you don't refuse a beer when Austin offers you it.
Like, DDP's super health conscious too. I think the only alcohol he drinks, if he ever drinks, I still have like a shot of tequila or something. So the idea that you're like, yeah, give me a big old beer. It's like, I don't see that at all.
No, I didn't enjoy it at all.
And look, you got bad intentions, or so it looks. Yep. Just like he pile drove you on the concrete floor and peeled up the mats to make sure that concrete was exposed. You've got the same plan here.
Yeah. It's crazy because everything Austin did throughout his career, it was like I was doing it back to him in the storyline. Everything from, the river to the mats to throwing him off the stage,
milk truck, the whole thing.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, the beer truck and the milk truck. So it was really cool. I got to relive what Stone Cold did a few years back.
And of course, famously, Lawler is not on this call. It's Paul Heyman and Jim Ross. And I think that was an underrated duo. Don't get me wrong. Everybody loves JR and the King, but something about Paul Heyman and his ability to almost act as an antagonist for Jim Ross was just really entertaining.
Yeah, they both had different styles, but they were both very effective. I love both Paul Heyman and Jerry Lawler. They were both incredible.
Of course, these days a pile driver is banned, and big backdrop. That couldn't have felt good. But we just saw you earlier in the package sort of explaining how we got here. You took a pile driver on the floor. A lot of trust involved in that move, is there not?
Yes. I mean, every time Steve would give me one, whenever he would do it, which he did, I think 2 or 3 times. I think we did it twice on TV and once at a house show. But what comes to mind is Owen Hart and Steve.
Yeah.
That occurred. So, Steve's like, don't worry, I won't drop you on your head. I'm like, well, Owen probably said that to you too, so you get a little hesitant because I didn't have a good stack of dimes to begin with. I broke my before the Olympics, and probably 2 years after this occurred, I broke it again. And, so not, having to take the pile driver, I was a little scared.
Is that the most scary move? I mean, you told us before you didn't want to go over the top rope backwards. You would just go over forwards. Was the pile driver like the next scariest thing for you, do you think?
Yes, the pile driver was definitely in the top 2. I was terrified. Anything that has to do with my neck, I would cringe.
It's just, everybody's got their stuff, right? Like some guys are scared of snakes or spiders, but when you've had a neck injury, you become very aware all of a sudden. So a guy like you is like, yeah, you want me to moonsault off that big ass cage? No problem. Pile driver, how about something else?
Yeah, I'll destroy my back and my knees, but I'll save my neck.
Well, listen, there's like an old adage, right? There's no pain like back pain. And, the neck's obviously part of that. And you knew how debilitating that could be. So let's do whatever we can to avoid that at all costs. But it called for it here, and you trusted Steve, and it worked out.
Yeah, well, Steve's a pro too. I know that he wasn't going to drop me on my head because he had it done to him, and he knows what it feels like, and he didn't want me to have to experience that. So he was going to make sure he didn't drop me on my head.
That Spanish announce table has taken 2 bumps from Kurt Angle, and it's still standing.
It's not breaking today.
The match here, by the way, according to Dave Meltzer, got 4 stars, and Meltzer couldn't help but notice. Finally, after teasing the pile driver as the killer move, Austin hit it, but Angle kicked out of the pin. Even though nobody has seen pile drivers in a long time since the WWF did the unofficial ban, the crowd didn't react to them anywhere near the heat the announcers were trying to sell the move with. Do you think fans at this point maybe just didn't understand how dangerous a pile driver was?
Well, I think it was relatively new to the new fans, because they got banned for so long. And, so it's not something that we accented that it's dangerous. I think the last time they had it on TV was probably around when Austin got landed on his head with Owen Hart. I don't know if they did it after that, but it wasn't a common move anymore. So people weren't aware of what it was and how dangerous it is.
So we see Austin throwing you back in the ring here, and it looks like he's reopened the cut from the match with Van Dam. I don't know that that's the old zippity doodah. That feels like the hard way right there.
That was the hard way. We weren't supposed to. He wasn't supposed to bleed.
When you're in a match like this and you know you're going over, I guess I should ask, when did you find out that plans had changed and now you're going to win? Do you find out that day when you get to the building?
Well, I told you earlier that I called Vince. I came up with the idea about a week before this event. And I told him, listen, the country's hurting. People need a boost. They need someone to believe in. I'm the Olympic hero, the American hero. I'm representing our country during this difficult time. I really think that you need to give me the title, not for a long time, just to give the country a little booster shot of confidence and feeling good about who we are. And Vince, told me to talk to Steve. And if it was okay with Steve, we could do it. I called Steve and he agreed immediately. He said, that's a great idea. Let's do it. So I only held the title probably for a week. And then I gave it back. So I wasn't supposed to win the title at that particular time.
I just, I've always been fascinated by the whole, I think Bruce says plans change, Conrad. And to me, it feels like this is one of those where we could have talked about one idea, then maybe we teetered towards something else, but then we get to the day of the show and it changes again. But you knew just after the phone call with Steve, oh no, I'm going to win it at Unforgiven.
Yes, I knew right after that I called Vince back and said, Steve's on board. Let's do it. He said, okay, well, let's make this happen. And we did.
To your point, you win it here September 23rd in Pittsburgh. You would lose it October 8th in Indianapolis. So just a couple of weeks later, you're going to lose it on Raw. But I guess what I was driving at was, did you invite your family to the show before you knew you were winning and they were just going to be there because you were in the main event either way? Or once you know you're winning the belt, do you think, well, I got to have them here?
Oh, I invited my family to the event before I knew I was winning, but it just made it more special knowing I was going to win in front of them. So, either way, they already knew.
Do you smarten your mom up that, hey, I'm winning the belt tonight, or does she see it happen and you just keep her in the dark and it's a surprise?
I kept everybody in the dark. They didn't know I was going to win. I wanted it to be a surprise.
I know it sounds silly, but your family's going to come in the ring afterwards to celebrate. So I got to ask, did you guys have some sort of after show celebration somewhere in Pittsburgh, or was it just on to the next town for you?
We had dinner at Permane Brothers. I don't know if you know who Permane Brothers is.
I do.
Popular in Pittsburgh.
I know it very well.
Permane sandwiches.
I don't know why. It just tickles me that, where are we going to go after we win the world title? Going to go get some sandwiches with mom. That's fun. Did your mom have a chance to meet many of the other wrestlers? Did she have a favorite or somebody who she thought was particularly nice?
Oh, she absolutely loved The Rock and Stone Cold. So those are the two she wanted to meet. I don't know if she met The Rock that night, but she did meet Steve. She was so excited.
Did she meet Vince? How was Vince with mom?
Vince was great. He's always great with people. He's so conversational and makes people feel special. Vince is he's got a very unique gift with that, the gift of gab and relating to people and being able to get along with them and make them feel special, because he made my mom feel special.
He's just charming.
He is charming. He's a great guy.
It's no wonder he's successful. Once you get to have a conversation with him, you're like, oh, okay, I see why people gravitate to this guy.
Yeah, they do gravitate to him.
And we're talking over one hell of a match. As we said, this is a 4-star match. Meltzer would say, Austin managed to actually get to where he was under the ropes, but he never grabbed the ropes and tapped out for the title switch. Give him credit. If they were going to do it, they did it the right way. The entire Angle family and most of the babyface wrestlers hit the ring for the celebration as the show went off the air. And we just talked about a really great match not too long ago that you had at SummerSlam that ultimately didn't have the best finish, but was arguably one of the best matches of your career. But this one is right after 9/11 and you do win the title and there is a clean finish and your family's there. So emotionally, I'm sure this is your favorite of the two matches, but the actual match itself, did you prefer this one over SummerSlam, or do you think SummerSlam was a better match? This just had more meaning because of the finish.
I think this one had more meaning because of the finish, but the SummerSlam match was a lot better. For some strange reason, I don't know, because if we had more time slated, but Austin and I had a really excellent match at SummerSlam. It was one of my favorite matches of my career.
And sometimes it just clicks, right? You're not exactly sure why it clicked, but y'all were both just on
that night. It just clicked. You're absolutely right, Conrad.
Climbing up the second rope. Looks like you're trying to set up the moonsault here. Let's see what happens. Not going to get it. Did you ever do one of those spots where somebody knocked your feet out from under you and you fell on the ropes and you actually did hurt yourself down there?
Yeah. You mean the balls?
Yeah.
Yes. Your feet move and you straddle the ropes and you land on your crotch. It hurts like a son of a bitch.
In my head, there was some sort of magic trick and you figured out how to work it. But now I know, nope, just a real ball shot. Here we go.
You want to put your hands down and grab the ropes before your crotch hits it, but most of the time you miss. You can't get the rope. And yeah, it's a crazy bump, man. It hurts like a son of a bitch though.
Oh, the old double down that you've told us about. Austin's back to his feet first. Who would have been the agent on this match, do you think? Would Pat have been around here in 01 for this one?
Jack Lanza. He was Austin's favorite agent to work with. So he did a lot of work with us. That's the guy who we reported to, and he's the one that helped us with the matches. So I think Jack was more of a, supporter of Stone Cold. I think that he was more old school than everybody else, and that's why Austin liked him. And I think that Jack was probably agreeable to a lot of Steve's ideas.
Right.
And that's why they got along, is because Jack was like, it's your match, do what you want. I mean, Jack would give us certain ideas and concepts, but for the most part, Steve would put it together.
Yep. Well, sometimes that's all you need, right? Just somebody to not get in the way.
Yeah. This is the angle where I started figuring out how to structure matches. I was coming up with great ideas too with Steve, and he allowed me to do that because he made me start thinking for myself. He kept asking me, he would get stuck and say, what do you want to do here? And I'd come up with an idea. He goes, that's a great idea. Let's do it. So he forced me to start thinking about how to structure matches and to build up false finishes to the finish. And I have to thank Austin for that, because I wouldn't have learned on my own if he didn't allow me to.
So we saw Austin throw Hebner into the corner. That allowed a little bit of a distraction. You kick him right in the balls, and you do the old double down DDT, and Austin rolls out to save the title, or hopefully. He'd love to lose by count out because he still keeps the strap. But you know that, and you're not going to let that happen. What was the best part about working the Steve Austin match, and what was the worst part about working the Steve Austin match?
The best part was his intensity, and the worst part was his intensity. He was a machine. I always blew people up, and with Austin, I never blew him up, not once. And he actually did blow me up at one particular time. It was Fresno, California. I don't know if you ever remember heard Austin say, "Hey, Angle, remember Fresno?"
Yeah,
he blew me up in that match, and so it's kind of become a joke between the two of us. But I never blew him up. I couldn't. He was in incredible shape.
Let's track a little bit here.
He's blowing the snot, and look at the Angle slam. But Austin counters. Angle slam. And Austin with the Angle slam of his own. Austin's going to be the Angle with Angle's own. 1, 2, 3. Other shoulder up. Right shoulder up. Right shoulder up.
Man, how great was JR on commentary?
Oh, he was so exciting to listen to. I've always been a huge fan of JR's. Ever since I started watching pro wrestling, he's always been my favorite commentary.
Oh, I like that. He's trying to set up the pile driver, and you're just holding the leg, not letting him do it.
Just selling and holding the leg, making sure he doesn't get me up.
I mean, that works. I like it.
It does. It works. It's simple and effective. It's what you would do in real life.
Absolutely. See, trying to get out of this predicament. Oh, and we're getting a good shot of those boots there. Who used to make your boots for you back in the day?
Oh gosh, I forget. It was a popular pro wrestling boot company that used to come into at house shows and get us fitted with boots, and they would end up making them and send them to us. So I think it was something Coach, something. I forget what it was called, but it had the word Coach in it. Don't remember the name, but they were great. These shoes were awesome. I loved all my wrestling shoes. I stopped wearing them because I had a hard time moving in them. I was quicker and more effective without them. So I started wearing
sneakers, right?
Sneakers, yeah.
Was there a favorite sneaker to wrestle in?
I usually wrestled I forget what the brand was called. I think they were called AVI something. I forget. But they were black, and that's why I wore them, because there weren't any color to them.
Oh, here it goes.
This was a great moment for my family and I. This was right up there with the Olympics.
Really?
That really meant a lot to me. This was my new career. It was my new passion, and all my brothers knew it. It was really cool.
And look at Mom. So happy. So proud.
Yeah, that's my mommy.
And there's her baby boy. He just beat the biggest star in the history of wrestling. And you see the family jumping in the ring to celebrate. Let's listen.
Family! Sisters, the nieces, and nephews! And you can only wish, and you only know that Kurt's father is looking down tonight and said, "My God, my boy did it again!" What a night in the life of Kurt Angle! What a night in the life of the Angle family! And what a night in the lives of the World Wrestling Federation! Finally, the WWF title is back in the WWF!
By the way, The Undertaker is in the ring hugging you. The Rock is in the ring. This is
holy shit. I was shocked. I was in awe. I couldn't believe these guys came out to congratulate me. You know, they're the biggest stars in the history of the business, and I just started out a year and a half prior, and these guys are coming out to pay their respects. I was just like, wow, this is mind-blowing. This is a dream come true.
Let my family save your family some cash. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket, but we will save you money. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of how much. SaveWithConrad.com.
I think anybody would be flattered, beyond flattered, to have this happen to them.
It's unbelievable to think that, you know, I've got the entire babyface locker room, and it's one thing to read that in print. It's another when you're like, oh, you mean The Rock and The Undertaker?
I know.
It's a big deal. And what a moment. Let's listen to JR get us off the air here.
My God, what a week! What a night!
He was saying what a night it was for Kurt Angle, for the Angle family, for the World Wrestling Federation. And I love that line about your dad in heaven looking down saying, boy, my boy did it again. What a great line from Jim.
Jim's the best. You know, he was so articulate, and the words he used were incredible. He was the best commentator I've ever known. I think he would have been, he's done other sports, but he would be great at anything. That's how good he is.
Well, I don't know what I expected today, but this was our most emotional Kurt Angle show yet. What a special day it was, especially with Kurt's mom sitting front row ringside when he won the world title. not too long after 9/11 in his hometown. It was a special day. And I can't thank you enough for being open and honest and vulnerable with us today, Kurt. This was a great show.
Thank you. It was a day I will never forget. I will treasure it forever.
And listen, it feels like I've got to find a silly way to transition to talk about physicallyfit.com. But here's the thing. If you're going to go toe to toe with Stone Cold, you need all the damn protein you can get. So cruise over to physicallyfit.com, click on where to buy, and you can find stores near you. And I've mentioned before, I've got 3 within driving distance of me, but I don't buy it there. You see, what I do is I click order now online. And when you do, you'll see that they not only have chicken snacks, but they've got organic plant protein called Snack Smart. And what's cool about this is these snacks are loaded with protein, very little bad stuff, but so much protein, very little sugar. And by the way, $9.99 gets you a bag. Now that has a whole bunch of servings in it, but when you use our promo code AnglePod, you save 20% off your entire order. So not 20% off one bag. If you order 10 bags, you save 20% on all 10 bags. By the way, they have a tremendous shelf life, but they won't last long, especially if you take them to the office. Take my word for it. It's a favorite at the office. They've got something for everybody. Kurt, your favorite is buffalo wing and blue cheese. It has the most protein and the least bad stuff for you. Cinnamon swirl, though, boy, the kids and the ladies, they can't get enough of that, can they?
Yeah, that's our favorite flavor. That's the fans and all the people that buy the chicken snacks and Snack Smart crispy protein bites. Their favorite is the cinnamon swirl, and a close second is the sweet barbecue.
So check it out if you haven't already. It's physicallyfit.com. Don't forget to use that promo code AnglePod. You'll save 20% off. Now, if you, for whatever reason, don't eat chicken, no big deal. We've got organic plant protein. You get the same great protein, but you get the same great taste. So check it out, physicallyfit.com. The promo code is AnglePod. You'll save 20% on your entire order. And if you want to go ahead and get Kurt Angle to sign something, Kurt was just holding up his world title. Maybe you've got a replica of that you want him to autograph. Well, cruise on over to kurtanglebrand.com. You can get everything you're looking for there. Autographed milk cartons, autographed cowboy hats. Maybe there's a wrestling fan in your life. What if Kurt Angle sent them a birthday card? You can do that over at kurtanglebrand.com. But my favorite is where fans get to send Kurt stuff to sign. Maybe you met him at an autograph signing before. Maybe you had your picture with him. He'll autograph that and get it back to you. He'll even do the same with your title belt or whatever. You got Kurt Angle t-shirts, and how about cameos? That's right. Kurt Angle will send a message to you or your loved one just in time for their special occasion. You can get it all at kurtanglebrand.com, right, Kurt?
Without a doubt, man. All that stuff that Conrad said, that's all on the website. If you have an item that you want me to sign that you have at home, send it to the address on the website, and I will personalize it. I'll write what you want me to write. All you have to do is give a small donation for charity, and it's yours. kurtanglebrand.com. Can't recommend it enough. You know, at a time when you see a lot of guys selling autograph photos for $100, it's not what Kurt Angle's doing. Everything's affordable. He's thinking of the fans, and he wants to make sure we're snacking smart. So be sure you check out physicallyfit.com. I'm really excited about next week, man. This was one of our better episodes. And next week we talk about something totally different, your debut in TNA wrestling. And as much as you accomplished in WWE, and Lord knows we just watched such a monumental moment, but you actually wrestled longer for TNA than you did WWE, right? Oh, yeah, 4 more years longer. I went 11 years in TNA. I went 7 in WWE until I made my return. I don't really include my return as part of my wrestling with WWE because I didn't really wrestle that much. I was more of a general manager and got inducted in the Hall of Fame. But I spent more time in TNA than I did WWE. And we're going to talk about my debut. It's going to be a very special day next week.
Yes, it is. We're not only going to talk about the debut, but how it happened. You know, a lot of folks thought when Kurt left WWE, well, he's probably done with pro wrestling. Very few people would have thought he would have shown up at TNA. Perhaps the biggest jump. And these days, everybody's talking about wrestlers jumping from one organization to another. When Kurt Angle, after all he had accomplished in WWE, jumped to TNA, it was a major happening, and we're going to talk about it next week. We can't thank you guys enough. Hope you're digging what we're doing. Hit the subscribe button, tell your friends, and don't forget to check out physicallyfit.com and use our promo code AnglePod. You'll save 20% off, and it's the best possible way to support the show. Kurt, I'm excited. I'm ready for next week, man.
Me too. Can't wait, Conrad.
We'll see you guys next week right here on the Kurt Angle Show.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.